Truth Seekers. Welcome back. Zach here. It's Tuesday, January 24th, 2017. One of the top news stories, what you see on the screen. Protests ahead. And this is in regards to the Standing Rock Sioux Dakota Access Pipeline protests that have gotten mainstream news coverage since September 9th, 2016. And if you follow this channel, if you follow my written blog, I've been documenting what's going on since then. On my blog, I probably have at least 20 entries on this pipeline protest and what's being reported about it in the media. And the conclusion I have come to, and this isn't going to be popular with a lot of people because there's so many people who are so inspired by this protest. And it is a rightful protest, standing up against a mega corporation. This is about culture. This is about the environment over corporate profits. It's not that I'm against the message of the protest, but what I've been showing on my blog is that this story is a setup and it is meant to end in some sort of tragedy or negative feeling, emotion at the end of whenever this ongoing narrative ends. I've seen how this is a setup to reinforce the message that plagues this world, and that is that corporate tyranny can have its way with everyone and get away with it, and have the laws of the land protected. What we've all witnessed our whole lives living in the United States of America, watching, billionaires rip off, half the nation's retirement and then escape without any penalty. Or supposedly right before they get sent off to prison, die, like Ken Lay. Or like that guy from Chesapeake Energy, whatever his name is, can't even remember. Died last year, supposedly in a car accident, guy that owns the Oklahoma City Thunder. Is his name Aubrey? I think it might be an Aubrey. Anyway, I have work on his death. If you're new to my channel, what I am showing is how fraud, tyranny, dishonest propaganda is being perpetuated against the masses, such as this protest. And something I'll have you think about is how many oil pipelines have already been built across this country. A lot already. And normally you don't even hear about it. They just build these pipelines right across the country. When you do hear about it, these stories that have the ongoing headlines, there's a reason you're hearing about it. There's a narrative they're selling. And usually the message is tyranny can't be stopped. And that's what today's message is. On December 4th, it was reported that the government in North Dakota decided to change the path of the pipeline, appeasing the protesters. But protesters said they didn't believe it, so they were going to hang around. And I said, just watch, this story's going somewhere. It's going to be a worse ending. These protesters will probably be on the bottom end of it. And so anyway, let me show you what's going on. Why was the pipeline stopped by the government December 4th? And now why is it being, put back on the path January 24th? 12/4, 1/24/124. That's not a coincidence. This is what's going on in this nation from the beginning of its history up to the present. This nation is run by a network known as Freemasonry. It's Freemasons in high places, abiding by esoteric knowledge, doing things by the laws of numerology, astrology, something called gematria or gematria, the practice of coding numbers into words. Let me take this story apart for you, and then we'll watch how the news presents the story with Donald Trump reinforcing the message of profit over people. Just watch, Truth Seeker. So this is CNN's headline. Protests ahead. Protests ahead. In gematria, that sums to 52, like White House, like government. And here the federal government, the new president, has just come in and overruled the state decision. This is federal tyranny over state government. Overruling the decision and saying, this is going to create jobs. This is my federal authority. I'm doing this in the name of jobs and profit. You know, building a pipeline, that's a temporary job for construction workers, and then it's a continual flow of oil for these billion-dollar industries where all the profits go to the richest people in the world. And sure, the employees of the company make money, but they're a very small percentage. And the opportunity cost of that. So just understand, the whole operation of building this pipeline and the oil is for wealth. And when you see the majority of the wealth made from that project, like 90% of the wealth, 90% of the benefit, it's going to the very richest among us who already have too much. In other words, as a society, as a government that pays taxes, there's other investments we could make that don't destroy the environment and people's culture to get a return, to create jobs. So when Donald Trump says this is all about jobs, understand that's bullshit. This is all about tyrant tyranny. You know, Donald Trump, born with a silver spoon in his mouth, duped a lot of poor, non-logical, non-critically thinking Americans into thinking he was going to be a populist. Look at his White House administration. All Washington insiders, just like every president. Every president's a puppet. People keep falling for the show. In Gematria, America sums to the same thing as theater, and it's not a coincidence. A lot of history in the theater, from JFK to Lincoln, and it's a nation of actors selling out ignorant people, duping ignorant people. So anyway, the headline, protests ahead in Gematria 52, like White House-like government. From December 4th, the day it was stopped, to today, January 24th, is a span of 52 days. Not a coincidence. I'll link this if you want to read the whole article. But here are the headlines from December 4th. Top story, Dakota Pipeline to be rerouted. And look at the gematria of this. Dakota Pipeline to be rerouted, 124. The date's 12/4, 124. Now here we are on January 24th, 124. See, this is what's so sad about my research. For 3 years, I've been showing with definitive evidence of how the media just does this every single day, and people just don't want to acknowledge it. They just can't believe it. They say, why would anyone do this? Well, they're mad tyrants. They're like have a spiritual sickness. This numbers thing seems to be very much part of their spirituality, the religion by which they operate the world. I'll link all these posts if you want to go back and read them. Here was the CNN when they updated their front page. It said pipeline stopped. And in Gematria, pipeline stop sums to 181, which is the 42nd prime number. Number associated with Freemasonry. It is Freemasons running your government, operating by this code. Big G for the Freemason compass and square represents 42, just like the word Freemason. With regards to this being about the pipeline stopped, from the day that national news of this story began, when the governor deployed the National Guard to the protest there, that's when this became huge in the headlines, September 9th, when the National Guard sent it out. It was going on from spring, but it didn't really get any mainstream coverage until the National Guard deployment. So anyway, from the day of national news coverage to the day of the pipeline being stopped was 86 days. Pipeline equals 86, symbol, pyramid, triangle, citizen, republic. You think that's a coincidence? 86 days, pipeline protest. This is news by the numbers. This is what I've been documenting for 3 years, what's really going on in this nation. They pay for protesters. They're called controlled opposition. What I think is going on is I think this native tribe is controlled by Freemasonry. It's not hard to imagine. This is a nation that was founded by Freemasons. There's native tribes that sold out more to the invading Europeans than others back in the day. You don't think by 2017 a lot of natives have sold out to Freemasonry? Freemasonry's all over the world, taking over all cultures. That's what the New World Order is. It's Freemasonry. And by the way, NWO equals 52, like government. So anyway, this tribe that started the protest, their name is Standing Rock Sioux 223, one of the most important numbers to Freemasonry. Masonic 223, the Synagogue of Satan 223. Happens to be coded right on Standing Rock Sioux, the tribe that's responsible for this national news story by the numbers. It's funny, I got this guy up here in Seattle who's known me since 2006. When I met him, he was 50, and I was 22. And when he met me, he thought I was the smartest person in the world. He just wanted to be my best friend. I thought, wow, I never had somebody this much older than me like me so much. So anyway, really interesting guy, really intelligent guy. When I discovered this gematria thing and shared it with him, he thought I had gone insane. And I've tried to persuade him many times to look more at this because he's an intelligent guy. And I was showing this about the Standing Rock Sioux and all the standoff by the numbers, and he just won't even talk to me. So I realized that about this knowledge, that there's some people who just think this is absolute lunacy and won't even entertain it. He's all caught up in this protest, and I guarantee you today he's losing his shit over the fact that Donald Trump's done this. He's probably ready to pull the trigger on his own brain because this guy's been fed up with the world like me. But what's so sad is I've given him some knowledge to see through how we're steered astray, and he doesn't even want it. So here's a point I want to make. Lake, I'm not even sure how to pronounce it. I want to mutilate the name. It might just be Lake-O. Lake-O, that's probably how they call it out in North Dakota. Could be Lake Ohi. Anyway, the lake that they were going to reroute this through, instead of taking the path, they were going to put the oil pipeline under a lake, and I was like, are they really going to do that? That sounds like a major feat. But anyway, that lake has gematria 58, like Freemasonry, like secret society. Donald Trump just won the 58th presidential election. You know, they hired the 58-year-old for Inauguration Day, plus a whole lot more. All that I've been documenting about Trump's presidency by the numbers. Old sitcoms that he went on where they joked that he'd be the president someday that were debuted on dates with 58 numerology. Also a lot of dates with 115 numerology in the past with Trump sitcoms about being the president. He takes office with the 115th Congress. If you write out 58 as a word, it sums to 115. The 58-year-old they got for the Inauguration Day ceremonies, his name is Steve Ray, which equals 115. All throughout history on dates with 58 and 115 numerology, Donald Trump episodes about being the future president. So this is what I mean. The script is deep. This has been going on. This is a Freemason practice that's thousands of years old. It's credited back to Pythagoras. Probably goes back way deeper than that. These people have been doing this. This is an old game for them. News by the numbers. Duping people by the numbers. December 6th, this article was written, Why They're Staying, a win for Standing Rock, but not a victory. Goes on to say how the people feel that there's going to be more to this. There were rumors that the company had already built the pipeline, drilling from the other side. Who knows? Here was a headline about a week or 2 weeks before December 4th. This was from November 25th. Pipeline protesters ordered out. Army Corps order strengthens. Our resolve, tribe leader says. You know, government, state government deployed the National Guard. It eventually escalated to saying, all right, you need to leave now. But then about 2 weeks after that, the protesters got their wish. So this headline right here, pipeline protesters ordered out, about the Dakota Access Pipeline protests. I just want to show you something about what they coined the name of these protests. In gematria, it sums to 113, like mainstream, like dishonest, just like the word protest itself and using the alphabetic order. All right, so here's another interesting headline. This is from September 9th, 2016. This is the date the National Guard was deployed after a federal judge's ruling. Breaking news. Feds ask builder to suspend oil pipeline construction. What's interesting about this headline is the gematria of 211. That's the 47th prime number. And this is based on a judge's ruling. Judge 47, obey 47, gavel 47, authority 47. The Freemasons have something called Euclid's 47th problem about how to establish foundation. Foundation 47, framework 47. And you know what the foundation of this nation is? Bullshit. Truly. And the Freemasons who orchestrated it knew it. The way this system works is on bullshit laws, a bullshit legal system, where it's all based on money and how much money you can afford to get yourself out of whatever situation with bullshit. And if you don't have money to pay for bullshit, to get you out of bullshit, you're fucked. That's the nation we live in. Hopefully that made sense to you, because it's the truth. So down below, I'm going to link a couple more interesting posts. Here's something somebody caught about the 112th World Series. During the time of the World Series, I was showing how there were tributes, you know, with the Cubs beating the Indians, the mocking mascot, the bright red face with the big teeth, during the time of these protests. That was no coincidence. Your sports are scripted with your news, something I've proven a million times over. Not to mention I called the Cubs in Game 7 in spring training. That happened. Right after I called the NBA Finals in Game 7 perfectly before the season began. And right after I called the Super Bowl perfectly, plus the MVP, plus what would happen at halftime, months before the Super Bowl was played. Here was another headline just to show you from October 29th. Not all tribe members opposed. And I thought this picture was kind of interesting. The facial expression they chose. 113 coded right into the headline, mainstream, dishonest, protest, Scottish, which I should mention, Scottish Rite Freemasonry. 223, Standing Rock Sioux Masonic. Stories like that are trying to clue you in, The people out there protesting, they're probably being paid to participate in a planned narrative. It's not hard to believe that Native Americans would sell out the masses at this day and age after the rest of the world has and every other race on it. You know what I mean? Everyone's selling out for the almighty dollar. Well, I shouldn't say everyone. I'm not selling out for any almighty dollars. That's why there's no ads on this channel. That's why I always speak my mind, no matter how unpopular my opinion is. There's not a single video out of the 2,000 videos I've made that I've ever expected to be popular. I know where I live. People hate the truth. People hate knowledge. People reject what they can't understand or have taken the time to understand. But somebody's got to speak out. Somebody's got to do something. And it ain't this asshole, not the Orange Oompa Loompa. Let's close out with this dumb motherfucker. Here we go, Truth Seeker. Hopefully this is loud enough.
This is with regard to the construction of the Keystone Pipeline, something that's been in dispute, and it's subject to a renegotiation of terms by us. We're going to renegotiate some of the terms, and if they'd like, we'll see if we can get that pipeline built. A lot of jobs, 28,000 jobs, great construction jobs. This is with respect to the construction of the Dakota Access Pipeline. Dakota Access Pipeline. Again, subject to terms and conditions to be negotiated by us. This is construction of pipelines in this country. We are, and I am, very insistent that if we're going to build pipelines in the United States, the pipe should be made in the United States. So unless there's difficulty with that, because companies are going to have to sort of gear up, much pipeline is bought from other countries. From now on, we're going to start making pipeline in the United States. We build it in the United States. We build the pipelines. We want to build the pipe. Going to put a lot of workers, a lot of steel workers back to work. This is about streamlining the incredibly cumbersome, long, horrible permitting process and reducing regulatory burdens for domestic manufacturing. Many of the people that we've been meeting with over the last long period of time, but yesterday and others, the process is so long and cumbersome that they give up before the end. Sometimes it takes many, many years, and we don't want that to happen. And if it's a no, we'll give them a quick no. And if it's a yes, it's like, let's start building. This is the expediting of environmental reviews and approvals for high priority infrastructure projects. We intend to fix our country, our bridges, our roadways. We can't be in an environmental process for 15 years if a bridge is going to be falling down or if a highway is crumbling. So we're expediting environmental reviews and approvals. That's what this is. Okay. Thank you very much.
What do you think, Truth Seeker? Are you buying it? Do you realize it's always the same shit in this country? It's going to create a lot of jobs for the steel workers. Well, who the fuck works in the steel industry? I know that's a real industry in this country, one of the very few remaining that's greatly reduced in recent decades. But I mean, steel isn't made in most of the country. Just the job conversation, it always stays in these same industries. What are we going to do for the nation? You know? How about getting more local, renewable energy? You know? Creating plants nationwide that's not just relying on a single industry that's located in one part. You know, the Keystone State. Keystone, let's do a little gematria lesson. Let's close out with a little gematria lesson. The Keystone State, the Keystone Pipeline, the first pipeline protest that was commanding all the attention before the Dakota Access, and now today, news about both of them. Keystone in gematria, using the English reduction method. It's where you compress each letter of the alphabet, one of the most important methods you can learn. Keystone is 33, and here are some more 33 words with that same method. Federal, order, masonry, secrecy, and more, Truth Seeker. But this is what it is. It's a Masonic order operating by the numbers, using esoteric knowledge in secret, but putting it right in front of the masses' faces and just duping them. In the time of the Keystone Pipeline protest, they've been building pipelines across this nation. This is all part of a political narrative. And, you know, most people don't give a shit about anything, but there's people like my friend in Seattle, the 50-year-old man who rejects me now because I try to show him what's up with by the numbers. But anyway, he's just someone who's just, he's not 50 anymore either. Now he's 60 because it's a decade later. That was 2006, he was 50. Anyway, you know, how do you think he feels today? He's just getting more and more crushed. You know, he can't believe the Orange Oompa Loompa's the president. He can't believe, and he just knows because he sees how this world is, just like all of us. That's why I've been saying the whole time I've been here, we need to learn how to work together, unite, become a network, use our resources to fight back. We need to learn how to really protest effectively because the protests you see in the media, they're orchestrated with controlled opposition, usually meant to make protests look futile or bad. You know, what they just did in Washington, D.C. on Inauguration Day, that's all staged. The police, they allow those windows to be broken. I mean, the police could be right there to bust it up if they wanted to. They want those scenes so that they can say, see people, protesters are bad. This is all part of the slow narrative of just getting people to nod their head into, yeah, we don't need any rights. We don't need the right to protest. That's what's been going on. Remember free speech zones that were set up in cities under Bush? You could only speak out about certain things in certain street corners. Otherwise, you could be arrested. How is this stuff even constitutional in America? You know, America's supposed to be about give me freedom or give me death. At this day and age, it's like, oh, free speech zone, that's okay. I just want to watch the ball game, you know? Is the ball game on? What'd you say, 9/11? When's the Super Bowl? Oh, God, Truth Seeker. I know it's hard, you know? We're in a tough situation. It's like I said, even people that used to respect me and work with me, they don't want to talk to me now just because I'm putting out more knowledge. And this is why I'm putting out the knowledge, so people don't keep getting taken emotionally by the lies. Like my 60-year-old friend who rejects this knowledge and says I'm crazy, he's getting taken emotionally by this story. And you know what he used to always tell me too? He's like, you got to be careful speaking out. I grew up in that decade where JFK and MLK and Malcolm X got their head blown off. You got to be careful, Zach. That's what he always said to me. I say, oh man, don't be afraid of all that. That's exactly what they want you to think. So that's what's up with the protests ahead. What's the breaking news? President Trump believes millions of votes were cast illegally in U.S. election, press secretary says, without providing evidence for debunked claim. And you know what this does? It just works people up. The conservatives that think the word liberal is bad, understand this. If you think the word liberal is bad, you don't even know what that word means because there's no such thing as liberalism anywhere. Liberalism means open-minded and willing to change. Where do you see that in the world? There's no political party that's like that. It's a system. It's the same thing again and again. You don't hear many open-minded people. You don't hear many people willing to change. I used to say I was the only real liberal in the world, you know? But anyway, the ignorant people that go, oh, that's the liberal media saying that they debunked the claim, but it's true. It's just, that's what it's all about. They just know that the whole society's this way. You got half of them that think the media is liberal, even though it's just a corporate propaganda mouthpiece, fascist, empire dictatorship rhetoric. That's what it is when you turn on the TV. It's not liberal, it's not conservative, it's just, well, if conservative means traditional, you know what? The New World Order is an old world order. Perhaps conservatism is the New World Order is good enough for me. Our grandfathers, our parents who are older, they've seen the world decline. I mean, I've seen the world decline. I've seen the world change a lot. I was born in 1983. We're the last generation that got to play outside. You don't even see kids anymore. It's like, are kids extinct? Where's the kids at? Can't find a child in a park nationwide. Anyway, Truth Seeker, I'm just talking nonsense now. Look at this other, I'm going to have to investigate this story right here. There's something amiss with this inauguration photo. I'll look into what they're trying to tell us there. The next video coming out, though, is on the Brexit news today. I was just starting to make the video on the Brexit, and this news came out about the protest. I said, oh, people will probably care more about this. I'll make this video first. But watch my next video on the Brexit news, and also Donald Trump, the election, and Brexit. Whoa. All right, Truth Seeker. Until next time.